There is nothing between us. I hear her voice, low and measured, in the half-lit hallway. She doesn't shout. There is no dramatic gesture, no tearful admission. She just says it, like stating the weather or reading a grocery list. I look at Linda, my wife, but it feels wrong to call her that now. She meets my gaze for a moment, then her eyes slide away. I say nothing in return. I can't form words. My mind replays the last few days in sharp, painful frames. Flash. The smell of sweet perfume inside my car. The kind she's never worn. Flash. A half-crumpled napkin in the glove box, stained with lipstick that isn't her shade. Flash. The forced laughter at dinner. Her sudden refusal to look me in the eye. Flash. The business trip that came out of nowhere. Flash. The test. DNA doesn't lie. Now we stand here, in the dim light of our hallway, and she says the most absurd words imaginable. There is nothing between us. I don't draw conclusions about whether she's lying or simply protecting herself. I just know it doesn't match the facts. You are too good for me. That's what she said once, years ago, when we were young, full of hope, standing barefoot in our new kitchen after signing the mortgage. She was leaning against the counter, hair still wet from the shower, wearing my old college t-shirt. I grinned then. I believed her words meant admiration or love. I believed she meant we'd grow old together. Now, as I watch her straighten her posture, I recall that moment. My chest tightens, but no tears come. I'm not sure what I feel, or if I feel anything at all. Outside, the sun is setting, painting the living room in an orange glow. I remember the day we moved into this house. The floor creaked. The yard was a mess, but we laughed. We believed the problems were temporary, easily fixed by patience and determination. I believed in us, but illusions can crumble fast. The first time I suspected something was off. A Friday evening. She was in the shower, phone left charging in the bedroom. A message popped up on the screen, one of those short, teasing texts. Mark, an unknown name to me then. I had no context, just the words, "Can't wait to see you again. Last night was amazing." Last night, Linda had told me she was going to an overnight teachers' conference in Duluth. She was supposed to be gone until Saturday noon. The text arrived at 8 p.m. Friday. I should have confronted her right away. Instead, I froze. I told myself it must be some silly misunderstanding. Then guilt stabbed me. What kind of man rummages through his wife's phone? But the doubt was planted. That same night, she emerged from the bathroom, a towel wrapped around her, glistening in the overhead light. She looked at me, and for half a second, I thought I saw panic in her eyes. But it passed, replaced by that practiced smile. "Long day," she said, stepping closer. She leaned in, kissed me. Her hair smelled like lavender shampoo. I tried to forget about the text. Her phone buzzed again on the nightstand. She tensed, hand still on my shoulder. "I'll get that," she said quickly, pulling away. That was the first real shift I felt, like a door slamming somewhere inside her, locking me out. Later, we made love, but I sensed she was distracted, as if she needed to prove something to herself, or maybe to me. I told myself to push the doubts away. I told myself we were still us. Shock. A few weeks after that Friday, I found a half-empty perfume bottle in the car. It was expensive, floral, but heavier than anything Linda had ever worn. The brand name on the bottle was foreign to me. The edges were smudged with lipstick prints, faint but visible in the right light. My stomach twisted. I said nothing. We drifted, our routines a silent arrangement. I went to work early. She left soon after to teach at the press school. Evenings, we sat in front of the TV. Sometimes we barely spoke beyond "pass the salt," or "did you pay the mortgage?" I caught her smiling at her phone too often. Once I saw that name again, Mark, on the screen as her phone lit up in the dark living room. She quickly tucked it away. She mentioned an upcoming trip to see her aunt in Minneapolis. I never heard of that aunt before, but Linda insisted she was a distant relative who'd reconnected. My gut churned with suspicion, but I still did nothing. I had no proof. The flashbacks shift. The pace goes thick and slow. I remember everything. My mother's voice on the phone. "Jim, I'm worried about you. You sound so tired." I was. Stress had latched onto me like a leech, draining my energy. I was losing hair in the shower, grinding my teeth at night. The sense of humiliation, the awareness that maybe I wasn't man enough, gnawed at me. Was I failing her as a husband? Had I become too predictable, too boring? Night after night, I lay awake, hearing Linda's soft breathing next to me. My mind conjured images I never asked for. Her with a stranger, their bodies entwined. Her quiet moans echoing in some cheap hotel room. The thought sickened me, and at the same time, fueled a dark anger. Then came the day I finally saw them together. Linda believed I was at work, stuck in back-to-back meetings, but an appointment got canceled. I decided to surprise her at the press school for lunch. Driving there, I got a text from a colleague. "Meeting rescheduled for 3 p.m. Sorry." That was it. No big drama, just a minor shift that changed everything. I parked near the press school. Linda's car wasn't there. A slight confusion flickered through my mind. Maybe she stepped out. Maybe she ran errands. I walked up to the door. Locked. The sign read "Closed for maintenance until 1 p.m. I had an hour to spare. On a whim, or maybe some deeper instinct, I decided to check the cafe nearby where Linda often grabbed coffee. I walked 2 blocks, scanning the street. That's when I spotted her across the street, stepping out of a sleek black sit-in. With her was a man, tall, dark-haired, wearing a stylish jacket. She laughed as he opened the passenger door. They disappeared into a small boutique hotel. My heart pounded in my ears. I followed at a distance, not fully sure what I intended to do. The lobby was small, the kind with a single desk, an older clerk reading a magazine. Linda was halfway down the corridor with him, Mark, her hand around his arm. She glanced behind, and for a moment, our eyes met. She froze. I stopped dead. My feet felt nailed to the floor. Mark turned to see what had made her pause. I saw the flicker of recognition cross his face. Maybe she'd shown him a picture of me once, or maybe he just realized this was her husband. Linda stood as if made of stone. Mark did something subtle. He laid a hand on her lower back, ushered her forward. Without words, they entered a room. The door clicked shut. I can't explain why I followed. Maybe it was morbid curiosity, maybe a need to confirm my darkest suspicion, or maybe I was just numb. In the next few seconds, it all blurred. The corridor's stale air, the patterned carpet under my feet, the sign Room 14, in cheap gold letters. Then the sounds, muffled but unmistakable. Soft moans, hushes, whispers. My mouth went dry. My face felt hot. She was in there with him. No more illusions. It was so obviously, painfully real. I pressed my ear to the door, heart racing so hard it threatened to break my ribs. Her voice was breathy, urgent. His voice, a low murmur. Clothes rustling. A gasp. An erotic current crackled in the air. I could smell their betrayal, or maybe I just imagined the perfume through the door. I should have pounded on it, shouted her name, demanded answers. But I stood there, petrified, for what felt like an eternity. My mind was a blank field of static. I heard a faint laugh, hers, then a moan, and something inside me snapped. I turned away and left, stumbling down the hall, through the lobby, out into the glaring midday sun. My car was 3 blocks away, but I didn't even care. I walked, unseeing, until I realized I was leaning against a lamppost, breath ragged, passers-by eyeing me with concern. In that moment, I felt small, humiliated, like someone had peeled back my skin to reveal an ugly hollowness. A strange thought flitted through me. You are too good for me. But now the phrase had a bitter taste. That night, Linda came home late. I pretended to be asleep. though I doubt she believed it. The house was dark, silent except for the faint hum of the refrigerator. She slipped into bed, and I felt the mattress shift, but neither of us spoke. I lay there, eyes shut, her perfume drifting over me. I wondered if it was his, stuck to her skin, or if it was something new she bought just for him. My stomach churned. My throat tightened. But I stayed quiet. The next morning, she was all smiles, offering me pancakes, coffee. She placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. "I'm going to Minneapolis next week," she said softly. "Aunt Millie's house. She's not doing well." I nodded. My voice came out hollow. "Sure. Safe trip." She paused, searching my face. Maybe she saw the emptiness in my eyes. She opened her mouth to say something, but then closed it. She set the syrup on the table and walked away. Time slowed. I drifted through days like a ghost, performing mechanical tasks. Sleep was fitful, and I started having headaches that pounded behind my eyes. A coworker commented, "You look like hell, Jim." I forced a grin, just not sleeping well. 2 nights before she left for her trip, I found an old photo of us tucked into my sock drawer. We were beaming in front of our newly purchased house, arms around each other's waist. We looked young, confident. I studied my face, searching for that man. He seemed a stranger now. That evening, Linda came to bed in a silky nightgown, a shade of pale blue I'd never seen on her. She slid under the covers beside me. "I miss you," she whispered, her hand on my chest. My pulse fluttered, confusion swirling in my mind. Why was she doing this now, after everything I'd seen and heard? I felt anger, desire, heartbreak, all tangled up. She tried to kiss me. I let her, but the sensation felt off. My body responded to her touch, some primal reflex we'd shared for decades. Yet my mind reeled with images of her and Mark in that hotel room. My breath caught in my throat. I wanted to say, "Stop," but I couldn't. Part of me needed to feel wanted, even if it was a lie. We made love in a strangely frantic way, her nails digging into my shoulders, my mouth on her neck. She moaned my name, but I kept picturing the hallway, the door, the muffled sounds. When she climaxed, I felt no triumph, only an aching emptiness. Afterward, she lay in my arms, silent, eyes closed. I stared at the ceiling fan, my heart hammered. I wasn't sure if I should hate her or hate myself for still craving her closeness. She left on a Wednesday morning. I told her goodbye at the door. Her suitcase was small, too small for a week away, I thought. She hesitated a moment, as if waiting for me to ask questions. I didn't. I just stood there, arms at my sides, feeling the weight of humiliation settle in my gut. "I'll call you," she said, her voice almost apologetic. Then she left, shutting the door gently, like a nurse leaving a patient's room. I watched from the window as she drove away. That same afternoon, I took the DNA test kit from my drawer. Yes, I had gone that far. It was a step I never imagined I'd take, but I needed to know. Our child, Michael, was 19, off at college in another state. We'd raised him together. He was everything to me. But small doubts had chewed at me for months, ever since a relative's comment about how Michael bore a striking resemblance to Linda's cousin. Not to me, nor to my side of the family. The kit was quick. A swab of my cheek, a sealed envelope. Curiosity overshadowed guilt. I sent it off, telling myself maybe I was just going insane, that the stress was messing with my mind. A week passed. Linda returned from her visit, looking radiant, sun-kissed, too cheerful for a person who was supposedly caring for a sick aunt. I avoided her. She avoided me. We spoke in half sentences. Then the results arrived in a plain envelope. My hands shook as I opened it. A short statement in formal language, disclaimers, percentages. Michael's father was not me. The probability matched Linda's paternal relatives, meaning Mark was a blood relative to that side, or there was some direct link from Linda's extended family. Either way, I was out of the picture. My knees gave out. I stumbled onto the couch, hearing my own breath rasp. My eyes blurred with tears, or maybe just exhaustion. 20 years. 20 years I believed I was his father. So many memories assaulted me. Teaching him to ride a bike, holding him when he cried over a scraped knee, cheering at his high school graduation. All the fatherly pride I'd once felt, now twisted into something cold and pointless. I tried to be angry, to rage at her. Instead, I felt like a torn balloon, deflated. Later that night, Linda tried to talk to me. Jim, about Minneapolis. I cut her off. I know. She swallowed hard. You know what? That there is nothing between us. Her shoulders slumped. She nodded. Jim. I walked away, upstairs to our bedroom. She didn't follow. I spent the next day methodically packing. Not her things. Mine. I took suits, books, personal photos from the early years. I left the house. The ring, everything that symbolized our life. I paused only once, running my thumb over the wedding photo. We looked so happy then. I placed it face down on the table. I left her a note. Keep the house. Keep all of it. I'm done. On my way out the door, I realized I didn't want to keep the name husband. I didn't want that label anymore. If she told people he left me, that was fine. I just didn't want her to call me that in the past tense, as if it carried any weight. I moved into a small apartment downtown. It was shabby, the walls thin, the carpeting ancient. But it was mine, and I was free from the stifling presence of her betrayal. That's what I told myself anyway. For 2 months, I barely slept. I drifted through work, ignoring colleagues, ignoring phone calls from Linda, and even from Michael. I wanted to explain things to him. I just couldn't. I didn't have the strength. I was learning to live without love, like living without a lung. Every deep breath felt hollow. Sometimes she wrote me messages, texts, emails. Once she left a handwritten letter at my office. She asked how I was, said she was worried, confessed she missed me. I read them in silence, then threw them away. I spent evenings at a small bar near my apartment, nursing cheap whiskey. I played sad songs on the jukebox, stared at the reflection of neon lights in the window. A few times, women approached, made small talk. I forced a smile, couldn't muster anything more. One night, I overheard someone mention Mark Davenport's name in a passing conversation. He was a culinary consultant, apparently well known in some circles. My chest tightened. The bartender asked if I was okay. I shrugged, sipped my drink. I told myself I wouldn't see her again. But life has a twisted sense of irony. A mutual friend lost his mother to cancer, and there was a small memorial service in the city. I ended up there, wanting to pay respects. Halfway through the service, Linda arrived, alone. She spotted me in the corner. My entire body tensed, but she gave me space. After the service, we both lingered in the parking lot. She approached slowly. She wore a black dress, minimal makeup. For a second, she looked like the woman I married, quiet, caring. Then I remembered that day at the hotel, the muffled moans, that envelope with the DNA results. Jim, she said softly, I just wanted to tell you I raised a hand. Don't. She blinked. I could see tears threatening to spill from her eyes. I deserve that, she whispered. A flicker of something almost like pity rose in me. But pity is not forgiveness. I turned and walked away, leaving her in the fading light of the parking lot. Time slid past. Her messages continued, sporadic, hopeful. She said, I understand if you can't talk right now, but Michael is worried. She said, please come home, even if just to talk. She said, I'm sorry. I never answered. My revenge was silence. My punishment was her memory. Then, one day, I overheard through a mutual acquaintance that Linda was telling people I had left beautifully, with pride, like a man who couldn't accept betrayal but refused to stoop to anger. The acquaintance told me Linda's voice trembled when she spoke about it. She told them, he's the one I lost, but he did it so silently, so fiercely. I imagined her describing me as if I were some tragic hero. The idea felt nauseating, but it also stirred something deep inside me, an ugly satisfaction. Maybe that was my final revenge, that she recognized I left her with everything, but not my forgiveness. I had no illusions left, but I still carried the wound. My humiliation as a man, as a husband, burned like a brand on my chest. Sleep was still elusive, but occasionally, I'd drop into a dream where everything was normal again. I'd wake up sweaty, disoriented, the emptiness crushing. I had no one to blame but her, and maybe myself for ignoring the signs for so long. I don't know what to feel became my internal refrain. Anger, sorrow, regret, longing. They blurred into a single dull ache. One night, while slouched on my old couch in the apartment, I got a phone call from Linda's father. He'd always been polite, never prying. But now his voice was strained. "Jim, I'm sorry for everything," he said. "I didn't raise her to lie." I listened, wordless, until he sighed. "She's not doing well," he continued. "She regrets everything, you know." I quietly ended the call. Something inside me hardened further. So even her father pitied me. Or was he pitying her? I poured myself a shot of whiskey, stared at the blank wall, the swirl of ice cubes sounding like distant thunder. Weeks turned into months. I kept telling myself each day was a step forward, that eventually I'd outrun the memory. But heartbreak is a slow erosion, not a quick break. Michael reached out once, wanting to talk. I agreed to meet him for coffee, the first real conversation we'd had since I left the house. He looked older, more serious. He was in his sophomore year of college now. We sat at a corner table, two men separated by truth. "Dad," he began, then stopped. I couldn't help but flinch at the word Dad. I wanted to correct him, but I didn't. He took a breath. "Mom told me everything." I sipped my coffee. It was lukewarm. "Then you know I'm not." He shook his head fiercely. "You raised me, Dad. That's never changed." The lump in my throat felt enormous. I stared at the wooden tabletop. The faint smell of cinnamon pastries wafted around us. Finally, Michael reached across the table and placed his hand on mine. "I'm sorry," he said softly. "I just wanted to say that." I could only nod, throat too tight for words. He told me about his classes, his dorm life, how he wished things were different. I said I was proud of him. Tried not to choke on the words. We parted with an awkward embrace. I stood on the sidewalk, watching him vanish into the bustle of the city. Linda called me that night. My phone buzzed. I stared at the screen, saw her name. And for once, I pressed answer. Her voice was small. "I didn't think you'd pick up." I stayed silent, waiting. "I heard you met with Michael." "Yes." She exhaled into the receiver. "I'm glad. He needs you." I bit my lip, the old anger flickering. "He needed a father. But I'm apparently not that." "You are," she insisted. "DNA can't change how you raised him." We both fell quiet, a long stretch of breathless air. Then she spoke again, voice trembling. "Jim, I know you hate me. I don't blame you. But if there's any part of you that can find it in your heart to talk, I'd give anything to." I hung up. I hadn't realized my hands were shaking so badly. That night, I tossed and turned, her voice echoing in my head. I wanted to forget. Or maybe I wanted to remember, just to feed the bitterness, so I could keep hating her. Hate felt safer than sorrow. The next day, I found myself outside the old house. Our house. I don't know why I went. The yard looked the same, though a bit unkempt. Leaves cluttered the walkway. The porch light was on, even though it was midday. Then I saw her silhouette in the window. She was on the phone, pacing. Her hair had grown longer, or maybe I hadn't really noticed how she wore it these days. A pang shot through my chest. I stood there, half hidden behind a tree, remembering the day we first moved in. Linda dancing in the living room, barefoot. excited to start a life with me. A neighbor's dog barked, jarring me. I turned and hurried back to my car, feeling foolish, exposed. I resumed my silent routine. Work, apartment, occasional whiskey at the bar, a few casual conversations with acquaintances. Another month blurred by. Then, out of nowhere, Mark Davenport stepped into my workplace. I was at my desk, finishing up some reports. Suddenly, a visitor arrived, escorted by the receptionist. "Jim, this man asked to see you." There he stood, the man from the hotel hallway, the man with whom my wife had shared moans and laughter. He was wearing a crisp button-down, dark jeans, nice shoes. He had a certain confidence that turned my stomach. He cleared his throat. "Jim, could we talk?" I stared, not speaking. The receptionist hovered uncertainly. I must have given some sort of nod because she left us alone. He looked around my office, then back at me. "I'm Mark Davenport." I cut him off. "I know who you are." He pressed his lips together, exhaled slowly. "I get that you want to punch me. I wouldn't blame you." I looked at his face, trying to gauge if he was mocking me. He looked genuinely tense. "If you're here to ask me for forgiveness or something, you're wasting your time." He swallowed. "I'm not here for that. Linda's hurting, and I can't fix it." The absurdity of it almost made me laugh. "You're worried about Linda's pain." He winced. "Look, this entire thing, it started out wrong." I didn't. I shook my head, a cold fury rising. "You didn't what? Mean to betray me? Sleep with another man's wife? Keep going until you got bored?" He opened his mouth, then closed it, hands trembling at his sides. I'm not proud of what happened. I stood up, bracing both hands on my desk. My voice dropped to a near whisper. "I don't care about your pride. Go. Leave." He hesitated, as if wanting to say something else. Then, seemingly defeated, he nodded and walked out. I watched him go, heart thudding, a numbness creeping through me. Revenge. I once thought revenge meant confronting him, screaming at her, making them pay. But in that moment I realized my silence, my indifference, was sharper than any words. I had become the ghost they couldn't shake off. I resumed work, ignoring the tightness in my chest. Days later, Linda left another message. "Mark told me he saw you. I'm so sorry he did that." Her voice cracked. "Jim, I'm sorry. Please don't shut me out like this." But I did. Time crawled like syrup. Fall drifted into winter. Snow blanketed everything. I felt stuck in a loop of monotony and dull pain. Then, one evening, out of nowhere, Linda appeared at my apartment building. She must have asked someone for my address. I'd never given it to her. I was unlocking the lobby door when I saw her standing behind me, breath misting in the icy air. She wore a long coat, hair pulled back. Her eyes looked hollow. We stood there in the swirl of snowflakes. A taxi idled at the curb, headlights glowing in the twilight. She spoke first, voice trembling. "Jim, I had to see you." I stared at her, waiting for her next words. My key was still in the lock. She swallowed. "I have no right to be here. But I can't stand it anymore. What we did, what I did, was unforgivable. I'm not asking for forgiveness." My chest felt like a vice. "What do you want, Linda?" She didn't flinch at the coldness of my tone. "To tell you that I made a horrible mistake, that I lost sight of who we were, and I held up a hand. You're too late." She bit her lip. Snow fell onto her hair, melting into droplets that trickled down her temples. "I know, but I can't pretend it didn't happen. I just want to make sure you know that it wasn't indifference. I never stopped loving you, Jim. I shook my head. My throat burned with unshed tears. "Stop." She fell silent, looking at me with such desperation that I almost believed her. But I remembered that hotel room, the DNA test, the months of lies. The worst thing was not the betrayal, but the emptiness it left behind. "There's nothing left," I said, pulling the key from the lock. "I can't give you anything. Not now. Not ever." She exhaled unsteadily, tears glistening at the corners of her eyes. "I understand." I moved past her into the lobby. She didn't follow. Through the glass door, I saw her slump against the brick wall, shoulders shaking. The taxi driver honked once, softly. She eventually got in and left. That was the last time I saw her face to face. Word reached me later that Mark and Linda were no longer together. Apparently, it had ended soon after I walked out of our marriage. I felt no satisfaction in that. It just was. Life carried on. The city's hum never stops. Work responsibilities piled up. Sometimes I found momentary distraction in them. But the pain, the sense of humiliation, remained like an old injury that aches on cold nights. Months drifted by, each day a small step away from the past. Then one afternoon, by chance, I overheard a woman in the grocery store talking about Linda. She didn't know I was listening. "Poor woman, she's all torn up about her ex-husband. Says he walked away with nothing but his name, wouldn't even let her call him that, her husband, in the past tense. And how he never shouted, never argued, just left. She said it was the most brutal goodbye she ever experienced." I felt an odd pang in my chest. My footsteps slowed. I picked up a can of soup mechanically. The speaker didn't notice me. So Linda told people. Maybe that was her way of coping, to paint me as the silent man who left with dignity. I had no illusions about dignity. Inside, I was a shattered version of who I used to be. But perhaps outwardly, I appeared proud, unreachable. That was my revenge, if you could call it that. In the end, the final confrontation was always with myself, with the swirl of memories we'd built over 3 decades. The worst part was acknowledging that I believed in the illusion right up until I heard her moan another man's name through a cheap hotel door. Betrayal hammered me, but it was her indifference that truly broke me. And maybe my own too, my refusal to speak, to ask why, to demand answers, to fight. I let it all go, left her the house, the ring, and any guilt she didn't want to carry. And that was that. The months turned to a year, and by then, the divorce was final. Our mutual friends either scattered or took sides. I heard from Michael occasionally. He was doing well in college, forging ahead. I told him I loved him, even if the DNA told a different story. That bond was the only piece of my old life I clung to, fiercely, silently. Today, I stand in my modest apartment, phone in hand. An old message from Linda glows on the screen. One I never deleted. "How are you?" she asked. I worry. I close my eyes. I imagine how things would have turned out if I'd confronted her sooner, if she'd been honest, if we'd sought help. But that's just fantasy. I walk to the window, looking down at the busy street below. Cars pass. People hurry along, living their own stories. Mine is just another chapter in a book nobody asked to read. "There is nothing between us," she said. The final truth. I let the phone slip from my hand onto the couch. Outside, a new day unfurls, indifferent and unstoppable. The memory of her voice still echoes in my mind. She tells people that I left with pride and silence. Perhaps that's how it looks from the outside. Inside, it's a quiet ruin. A man humiliated, a heart uncertain what to feel, a future that still looks like an empty road. Yet somehow I exist here, day by day, breath by breath. This is all I have now, this moment. The knowledge that sometimes the final blow is not a shout or a fight. It's a cold, destructive hush. I turn away from the window, gathering my coat, keys, and a small sense of something close to resolve. The day is waiting. I'll meet it on my own terms, and that's enough.